could have our panelists come up. And just as they're coming up, good morning. My name is John Ipple. I'm the Sustainability Director for the City of Orlando, and I really appreciate you all coming out today. I think this has been a great series of speakers that we've had this far. So with us today, we have three, maybe four. Yes, four. We have four panelists, another round of very exciting individuals here. And so with further ado, would you guys just kind of go down the row and explain or introduce yourselves and then how your work relates to the climate and energy discussions that we've been having today. We have two. John, why don't you start?
Okay. Dangerous thing giving me a microphone, I'll tell you. First of all, I'd like to thank the City of Orlando and, of course, Mayor Dyer for putting this all together for us. My name's John Porter, and I'm the CEO of Clean Footprint. And we are a solar development and finance company concentrating on what we call the middle market. And some of the things that I'd like to talk today to all of you about is not necessarily energy efficiency, because I think we've hit that. And John, I'm assuming this is sort of our 5-minute intro. Okay, very good. So I think each one of us has 5 minutes and then we get pulled off the stage. But I'd like to talk to you all about, because I know a lot of you are involved in government and sustainability programs, or maybe you're in businesses that care about the triple bottom line, which we call people, planet, and profit. And that's what our company is all about. But here's the big idea. I don't know if any of you have been watching I-4 out the window at all. But what I'd like to talk about is something that can really help the utilities hold on to their revenue streams and actually stay strong. And that would be switching our vehicles and, believe it or not, our lawn equipment, anything that uses gasoline. Okay, we can't clean up gasoline. There's nobody that's figured that one out. If we could, we'd be doing it, I'm sure. So the idea is for all of you in all your jobs and at home, using the power of the consumer, is to start changing how you fuel your vehicles and how you fuel even your lawn equipment. The idea is to put those dollars onto the grid, and it's at a huge discount. I drive a Chevy Volt, and when I'm driving my car on electricity, I'm spending about 20% of what you all are spending on gasoline. Let me say that again. I am spending about 20%, 20 cents on the dollar, compared to what you all are paying for your gasoline. So the idea is to get onto the grid as a Florida, as the Orlando region, get everything on the grid, get off gasoline, get it on the grid. OUC is stronger that way. We can clean up the grid. We can't clean up gasoline, we can't stop the carbon emissions from gasoline, but we can clean up the grid. OUC has already proven to be a pioneer. They built some very good solar systems here locally. It is quite possible, and I'm going to tell you, we can power Florida on solar energy. Now, one thing that we'll need in order to do that is batteries. Energy storage. Energy storage should be something that we're studying as local government and trying to figure out the best ways to store energy. Because once we can store energy cheaply, solar energy becomes 24-hour-a-day energy. Folks, people will tell you that this is impossible, but it's not. It can be done, and we should be working on that. That's what Clean Footprint is all about. We want to change our economy over from fossil fuels to solar energy. Along with batteries, we can do it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maylen Dominguez, and I'm very excited to be here. My path is a little more circuitous, so I am excited, I guess, that I have 5 minutes, even though I didn't know we were going to have 5 minutes. So we'll be on the cuff here. So I studied literature and film at Yale, and I was living in New York City for a little bit, and then I went to LA, and I went to USC Film School, and I was in film production there. But while I was there, I had the great opportunity of seeing kind of all this energy efficiency that was going on, all these green buildings that were going on, and my mom is a local home builder here in Orlando, so I would call her and say, are you building greenhouses? Like, you need to put green roofs, you need to do this, you need to do that. She's like, honey, I don't know anything about that. If you want to do that, you got to move here and you have to help me do that. So suddenly I was like, well, wait, I'm a filmmaker, I'm in the film world, but I switched gears. I really felt that there was, it was about 11 years ago now, and I saw there was this great opportunity here in Orlando, and like many of us that moved back to Orlando, it's we felt like, you know, this is such a spectacular, beautiful place with so much potential, and I know that's why you guys are all here, and that we're all committed to doing something. I kind of felt like, okay, what can I do and how can I make a difference? So I got my building contractor's license, and I started building infill houses, and I built the 2007 Nunamaker home, which was one of the greenest houses in downtown Orlando at the time. It was kind of right at the lead forefront, and got really involved in that and loved doing that, and then had the amazing opportunity of getting asked to be a commissioner on the OUC board. And of course, that experience has been extraordinary for me in many ways, not only getting more in-depth understanding of the utility business and what that means, and that it's a lot of really good people in the utility business that are trying to make a difference, that want to do what's right. And really what we face right now is, you know, to me, it's interesting coming from the film business, because we saw this happen in film also, this extreme switch to digital, and having to completely shift the mindset and to really be incredibly innovative in how it is that you look at, okay, there's other ways to make money, and there's people that either get on the bandwagon to make money in a new way or they don't. And so this is something that I've been really encouraging OUC, and I think that I see the leadership at OUC has been embracing, and everybody's kind of on board with, you know, understanding that renewables are important, that energy efficiency is critical, but at the same time that that we need to come up with a new model, as was mentioned before. We need to find a new way to create income, and that can be done, and it can be a win-win, and I'm a big believer in that, and I think that we can do that. Currently, right now, I run the Film Master's Program at Full Sail University, so I left the whole building business and went back to film. The fact that it coincided with the housing collapse, I have no idea what that's all about. But of course, I'm, you know, thrilled to be in education at the same time, and you know, people often ask me how this is in alignment. We just had all of our students are competing right now to get their films for this UN climate change. It's going to be in Paris in a year and a half or so, and so they are, you know, making movies about that. So there's a way that we can tell the story, because look, we're all here, you guys know a lot about this, and we can talk everyone to death and bore you to death. I'm a big believer in how can we make sure that we connect back to why we're doing this, what's important about this, why this is meaningful to us, and how can we share the story in a way that will really connect to people's, you know, to their hearts. Because ultimately, how can we tell stories, how can we be creative when we don't have beautiful nature to look at anymore, when we don't have something extraordinary that inspires us? How will this place be competitive going forward if it's so hot that nobody can come down here, or there's constant hurricanes? You know, this is an oasis, it's special. Not only do we have to go back and retrofit some of the old things, but we have all sorts of new things that are coming up that we have to think. You know, I just went to the restroom, it was all dark and the lights came on. I mean, it's constant things like this in our planning and what we can do to change, to make an extraordinary place that is innovative, that is dynamic, and that's inspiring. So.
Thank you, Maylen. I have sort of a similar story, but I think my directions were in the exact opposite direction. I grew up in Southern California. It took me 25 years to move from one theme park to the other. I grew up in Orange County, California, did indeed work at Disneyland. I went to that better university in Los Angeles than the one you mentioned, Del. Okay? And then I chose to go to Connecticut as well, and I worked at the better university in the state of Connecticut than the one you went to as well for 20 years, and left that state down here because of the opportunity that is here in Florida. And so I run the Florida Solar Energy Center, which is a research institute of the University of Central Florida. We have about 80 professionals that work in energy-related activities, and you can imagine we were created actually by the Florida legislature, and Senator Bill Nelson had a lot to do with that back when he served in the legislature of the state of Florida at that time in our creation. And that was a solar beginning. Of course, when we thought everybody would put solar hot water heaters on their roof, and photovoltaic and solar electricity was just way too expensive. You never imagined that you'd be doing that. And so we had a bunch of tree huggers that worked at my place, and we easily branded it then to energy efficiency, and actually built buildings energy research efficiency, about 40 professionals that work actually on those activities, and we partner with ACEEE, get a reasonable amount of funding from the utilities as well, working on various things. And there are opportunities even in deep retrofits where you even shave off peaks from the utilities perspective. So there's examples where the utilities really win when you do some energy efficiency things. So we can find those win-win opportunities. And I think the exciting thing is I want to point out to us is that as we've moved past New York in population, supposedly that occurred in February of this year and became the third most populated state, I remind you the 19 million of you are all larger than all of New England together. So you saw those states of Massachusetts up there being energy efficient, you saw the New England states, you saw all that. Okay, yeah, I left there. Why? They're doing it. We have a lot of potential. Maybe it's a potential we haven't achieved yet, but we're working together with the team. And I think it's an exciting time. You've seen the efficiency activities that we've talked about and all the energy efficiency savings there. We've seen that the utilities in the state of Florida have led a lot of the Southeast. We are moving cleaner, okay, in a lot of progress with that. We're starting to see where the economics of large-scale utility solar can actually be the cheapest power plant around. I was shocked that I would tell you that, but that's the case right now. Okay, yes, we do need storage to provide the energy over the evening and some things like that. But lo and behold, we can get rid of all those internal combustion engine cars where we buy gasoline that doesn't come from Florida and use locally made electricity, maybe through energy efficiency taken out of your home. Typical energy efficient home cost savings, 30% energy efficiency savings. If you take all that money and buy electricity back from the utility with it, you've fueled your car for free. So your first automobile, once you've retrofitted your home, the fuel's paid for. The second one, yeah, maybe it's solar, utility, or whatever, but we could generate all the electricity to replace our transportation fuel, and it can be made here. The $68 billion that we talked over, the money that we spend on efficiency, unlike our tax dollars, the tax dollars are spent here in Florida. We argue about them a lot, but they're spent here. Okay? My real crime on that energy is, yes, it's a huge number, and all that money is shipped across our borders. I want to lower the expenditures on energy, because once you spend money on energy, it's gone. You can't get it back. Spend it on infrastructure, jobs, and creation. But I want it spent here. And I think collectively we can all win, okay, at focusing on finding ways to do things energy efficient, do the business we need to do, and keep the monies here. And that is a partnership of all.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Robbie Diamond, and I'm going to have to start by saying the greatest thrill about being here is that 18 months ago at the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I got to, I just coincidentally was on center court and I got to speak. And I got to do the famous line that said, "Good evening, Orlando." So today I get to say the other thing, thank you for having me back, Amway Center. It's my second appearance, I'm hoping for a third. So I'm the CEO and president of Securing America's Future Energy and the Electrification Coalition, and we're based in Washington, but we have projects around the country. And we have this great project in Orlando that I'm excited to talk about today. It's called Drive Electric Orlando. And in thinking about Orlando's greatest assets, and of course you do more than tourism, but tourism is really top of mind. And what it provides is the opportunity, as you heard before earlier about the Chevy Volt, is to get more electric vehicles into our system. And so the best way to sell an electric car is to actually have people try an electric car. And the best way to get them to try it is to rent it. Orlando has the largest rental car fleet in the world at 50,000 cars. They have over 4 million rental transactions, and people are driving generally about 20 miles. Another thing about Orlando is you already have 300 chargers in this area, and right now 32 of the major hotels have charging infrastructure more by the carts. And so our idea was to create a public-private partnership with the two cities, with Mayor Dyer, Mayor Jacobs, Visit Orlando, and a great team of partners in the theme parks and the hotels and the rental car companies, and get those 60 million Americans and others who come down here to try electric vehicles for the first time, and to demonstrate that Orlando is on the cutting edge of our technology revolution. And it's not just about the local, but really about the national. There are about 3.5 million hybrids on the road today, and that's after 14 years. There's 250 million other cars. So, in essence, that hybrids, it's not a success nationally in some ways. I mean, it's great that there's that technology that exists, and yes, slowly it's going to be integrated into more of the car fleet. But if electric vehicles are like that, you know, we really will be letting a great opportunity that's now occurring go to waste. There are about 18 models on the road. At this point in the introduction of hybrid vehicles, there are only 3. And the 3 top sellers are outselling the Prius at this point in Prius's life, which is about 4 years in. So it's really exciting opportunity. If one looks at rental cars, Sixth Enterprise just put out a study that showed that 60% of people say that they have chosen a car based on some of their experiences with a rental car, and 70% said that they changed their image of cars based on actually renting a car. And in the millennials, that's even more exciting in that 50% of millennials are actually looking for a car to rent with technology that they've never seen before. So there is an opportunity here that is tremendous that can change the world. And I say that because there is no other place in the entire world like Orlando where this opportunity is in front of you. And it matters a great deal. You heard today several of these statistics, but it's very important from a global national scale. After power plants, emissions, 34% of emissions in the United States come from the transportation fleet. 92% of our transportation fuel is oil. So what we focus on at Securing America's Future Energy is the economic and national security risk of our oil dependence. And 92% of our transportation fleet requires oil, and there's no other alternative. So this is a huge national security threat. And that's from if you look just around the world, Senator Nelson mentioned it, Iraq, Iran, Ukraine, Venezuela, even Ebola in Nigeria, they're talking about problems that could happen to the oil industry. You scratch the surface and you look at our economic future, oil is at the center of it. Every recession in the history of the United States in modern times has been preceded by or happened concurrently with an oil price spike. And it matters even more locally because tourism is one of the first industries to be affected by oil price spikes. So between 2002 and 2012, American consumers, their price, what they spent on oil rose from $1,200 to $2,700. And what they don't do with that money is they don't take a trip. In fact, the Tourism Bureau shows that the highest inflation, 3 years running, in the last 3 years, gasoline has actually been the highest inflation in the tourism industry. So this matters locally. You have a local opportunity to change the world, and it matters to the entire world. And so we hope, working with all of you here, and with the great partners in the cities, at the theme parks, the rental car companies, the hotels, Visit Orlando, and John and everyone, we really hope that this can be the shot that's heard around the world and the revolution can begin here. So thank you very much.
We intend this to be an open dialogue, so feel free to elaborate on the questions that are posed to the specific panelists. So Jim, we've talked several times today already. Skip mentioned it, you mentioned it about keeping these dollars, these utility dollars here in the state. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? And then secondly, what role does solar play? There's a lot of perceptions about the intermittency of how solar is produced, the economics, that it's too costly. Can you just kind of talk about some of those macroeconomic issues as it affects solar specifically?
Well,
For a long period of time, the state of Florida has enjoyed low energy prices, and our utilities deserve a lot of credit. Even though we had price fluctuations back in the 70s and the 60s and then through the 80s, they got as a whole very efficient transmission, operation of their power plants and some things like that. And so we enjoyed a period of time of relatively low energy prices. And that was the same sort of period of time. Unfortunately, citizens aren't familiar with the price of their electricity. Most of them don't know what the units are, but everybody knows the price of a gallon of gasoline. So if you can imagine, there was a period of time when we were all living with $1 a gallon. Okay, that same kind of thing was going on with electricity for that long period of time. And Florida, traditionally, as it does in gasoline as well, has low prices with that. And then, China and India started coming online, 1900s to 2000. Florida was advanced compared to a lot of the other states in the South and promoted more building codes and got more energy efficient with this. But electricity's always been cheap, okay? And so, from a lot of perspective, the idea was it wasn't broke, why fix it, okay? There's a reason why New Jersey has more solar on its roof residentially than Florida does. It's not because New Jersey has more sun. It's because the electricity out of the wall is already way too expensive in New Jersey. It was broke, they looked to alternatives, okay? I think we can learn from a lot of that. Renewable energy is always an alternative until it's cheaper. I think we're looking to the point, of course, where we've always said efficiency is more upfront and cheaper. It's a different business model if we are from a utility perspective, based on making a profit based on our capital investments. Efficiency goes against that. On the other hand, you as a consumer, okay, want to spend the least amount of money you possibly can on energy. So the opportunities to fix buildings now that the price has gone up is encouraged. We've looked at that. We're starting to look at the whole thing as a giant system together, recognizing that we do want to keep the resources here in the state of Florida, looking at new ways of doing transportation. So I'm very upbeat about the way we're working forward with this. The economics are such that now, 10 years ago, wind was too expensive, solar was too expensive. Now we've got a lot of cases where it's actually the cheapest alternative. All right, there isn't really truly a war on coal. It's not a political thing. It's not even an environmental thing. The reality is the price of coal has doubled in the last 10 years, and it's too expensive. Okay, so that's why I'm really upbeat about the future. Is that now I don't have to just hold my tree hugger image. I can talk about green, and what she's really wearing is $1,000 bills all pasted together in that outfit, okay? It's just a different way of thinking. There's money in this. Isn't it great to do the right thing for the environment and our future and make money at the same time?
Thank you. Robbie, you approach us from a pretty unique perspective. Because on one hand, you guys are looking at the climate change issues and how the transportation infrastructure impacts that. But on the other hand, it is the energy independence. And so you have a lot of organizations that are backing your nonprofit that are Fortune 500 companies, generals, former military officials. And so can you elaborate a little bit more on kind of, maybe some of the folks here are really, their thing is not the climate change things, but maybe that the energy security aspects resonates a little bit better. So what is that nexus, and kind of what are some of the other perspectives beyond just Orlando of why people are really motivated around this issue?
Right, so in fact, the climate change thing is not our thing at all. We actually do not get into that issue. It doesn't make us deniers, it doesn't make us supporters. It's good that all of our solutions actually are important for climate change. But really in 2004, when oil prices were really just under $30, but one could see trends going up where we're fighting two shooting wars, basically consummate cause is oil. You've got increasing demand from India and China that's growing rapidly. In fact, since then, China has added an entire Japan of oil use onto the marketplace, which explains some of these reasons we have these high prices. And one looks at the political playing field in Washington, where we started thinking about this issue, sort of a classic Washington problem of narrow interests engaged and the broader interests not engaged. And so you really have oil companies, car companies, and environmental groups clashing with each other, and they get into this whole tastes great, less filling type of argument between these two. And we wanted to sort of look at this differently. So we recruited CEOs of large companies that use a lot of energy and four-star admirals and generals to speak to this economic and this national security issue. And our chairman, Fred Smith, the CEO, founder of FedEx, and who burns 1.4 billion gallons of gasoline a year with 800 airplanes and 95,000 trucks. But he runs the clipper ships of the modern economy. He understands why this matters and why the economy goes into a tailspin when there's an oil price spike. And 4-star admirals and generals, starting with General P.X. Kelly, the 20th Commandant of the Marine Corps. He's since become our retired, but the 34th Commandant is General Jim Conway. And they've been fighting wars over oil for a long time. Now, that's because we in the United States have taken on that burden for ourselves. We've said to the world that we will secure these supply lanes because it is so important to the modern economy. Now, that being said, I think they're tired of every time there's a problem somewhere in the world and getting called 911, call the U.S. military to do these things. And so they're just highly motivated for those reasons. I think if you look at the world today, we've seen all this production in the United States of new oil, and that's actually masked a much bigger problem. And it's a great revolution going on in the United States. It's driven a lot of our economic benefits lately. But the truth is that there's over 3 million barrels of oil off the market today in Libya, in Iran due to the sanctions, in Iraq. Just put this fact on the table. The world predicts that 60% of OPEC future production is going to come out of Iraq. Now, who wants to bet their entire future on that right now? That's a problem in the next 10 years. So this idea of the U.S. production has really been what I'd say filling in the potholes of a system that's highly broken due to global instability. And I think that that's what drives them. The last point I'll make is what's really important to people who do not care about the climate or in fact maybe even deny climate change, this issue does matter to them. They care about national security, care about a strong, forceful America, that the next century of America is better than its last. And what really matters and resonates with them is that there's no free market when it comes to oil. And that's where you get into what the government should do. And the truth is that oil is a cartel on the other side called OPEC. Every 3 months they come out of a meeting and they tell us how much oil they've decided to put on or off the market based on what they think they want the price to be. That would be criminal in the United States. When you go to a conservative and they say, well, let the free market figure it out, what we point out is there is no free market. And that's where you begin to drive the conversation of what is a responsible role for government in order to solve this major problem. And I think that's really important for people to understand when they talk to people who might not be into this issue for green or the environment. Thanks.
Thank you. So Maylen, you've explained your very diverse background, varying from home builder to filmmaker to OUC board member. And on the face, these are very different subjects and interest areas. But I think it's also very telling about the need for collaboration, especially when we're talking about attracting the creative class and building an economy around this emergent millennial generation. So can you better kind of elaborate on the role that energy can play in that new community, the new economy that we're trying to create here in Orlando?
Yes, absolutely. I'm very fortunate to work, like I said, at Full Sail University, which is incredibly cutting edge in everything that they're doing kind of from an education perspective. We have degrees from, that have to do with app creation and simulation and really like kind of looking towards what the future jobs are going to be. And the people that are attracted to come for those jobs and the next generation that's interested in those jobs, to them, this whole issue of whether there's, this is not a question. Like there's already, the next generation is 100% on board with everything that has been talked about already today. Like it's not an issue of is there global warming. There is global warming and we need to do something about it. And again, not to get political about it because I don't think it is political. It's simply a basis of I care about my world and my environment and I want to do something about it. And for us to be thinking about, okay, we're going to be a simulation, a hub here, an innovation hub here, we're going to have a digital community, a creative village, and to not be thinking that at the same time the people that are going to make that happen are going to want to live in a city that's living in the 1970s, that's not going to work. I mean, they will only come here and be a part of this if everything else is in alignment. If the buildings are energy efficient, if the venues are energy efficient, if the people, the culture is thinking about what we're doing. One of the things I didn't mention is the mayor is working on this project downtown Orlando, which is envisioning the next 10 years of Orlando, and I'm chairing the sustainability committee, and we're really trying to think that way. And one of the big things that's come up both in the visioning that we're doing with OUC and with what's going on with the renewables and energy efficiency in OUC and with this project ETO is, all right, well, these are some attainable goals that we have going forward. And what I keep saying is if it seems attainable to us today, we're not reaching far enough. And to me, that's what the innovators are saying. You know, this is what the degrees that we're coming up with, what the jobs that are happening are things that you guys can't even think about right now. I can't even think about right now. It's so far beyond us, and so we really have to reach as far as what we want our streets to look like. What you know, the communities coming together to make codes that work to make things more efficient. You know, I know that everyone on the City of Orlando staff is working hard on that, and I have to just really quickly make a shout out for like Braden and Chris and John and Elizabeth, because we are constantly visioning and having these conversations, and then there are people that are actually doing all of the work. And so I am so thankful to the work that you guys are doing, because when we kind of come at this from both sides, we can make things happen. And that to me is efficiency, and that to me is really important. So I'm excited that Orlando is on this path. I'm excited to see so many more creative and dynamic people coming. And again, I don't even think, kind of to your point about there's 1,000 reasons why this is really important. But first and foremost, my 11-year-old, who's, by the way, I just read this whole article about how they're reaching towards 11-year-olds for internships in like Silicon Valley, and someone's reached out to her for an internship because this is the generation that's thinking. Like, this is not even a question for her. To her, like, when she sees someone put a piece of paper down, she literally, to them, she's like, what are you doing? Oh my God. I mean, she's horrified. It's, they have a joke. It's not, it's not fossil fuels, it's fossil fools. And it's we need to really understand that it's not a matter of us, honestly, choosing to do it. We just have to do it now, because they're all coming up, they're ready. And to me, that just sets the stage for really making this extraordinary community that's like creative, innovative, sustainable, and that all comes together.
So John, you represent the fledgling solar development industry that, I think it's representative of what we could be here in the very near future. And so can you elaborate a little bit on what are some of the challenges that your industry faces right now, and what are some of the short-term opportunities as well?
Sure, John. First of all, we address the middle market, and there's other companies that address residential, and then other companies that do what we call utility scale solar, which Dr. Fenton was saying is some of the best pricing, of course, is on that mass-produced solar. And we need it all. Some of the challenges that we have here in Florida mainly is due to Tallahassee. I've been up there time and time again trying to see if we can change things in Tallahassee. But I see Buck here with FPL, and those guys don't want to let go. They're pounding many millions of dollars over the past decade into controlling politics. And it's very difficult for us. So I can't sell you energy today in Florida because of policy out of Tallahassee. I can't. My taxes on the equipment that we have here as personal tangible property taxes are incredibly high. About 40% of the cost of generating a kilowatt hour of energy in Florida, guess what, goes to taxes. It doesn't work. It doesn't pencil out. It does pencil out, I think, in some cases for residential units. And we'll see some of that coming as the taxes were finally approved to not charge people extra taxes on their home solar equipment. So other things that we have here in Florida really, again, is the tax issue that we have to get rid of, which was defeated by one of my own representatives in Brevard County, killed it in his committee to get commercial property tax abatement. So in Florida, we're a little bit dead in the water because Tallahassee just believes one thing, that IOUs are the only way to go. The smart IOUs, I think, in the long run are going to figure out that the models have to change. And I've said this to some good friends in the investor-owned utilities. Your models are going to have to change. We're going to force it to happen. It's going to happen. And the question is, do you get out and lead? Do you get out and lead, which is not happening today, or do you sit around and try and hold on to your dollars that you're making? Now, our company, middle market type solar company, is basically doing our business out of state. Because after a few years of really working hard to make the numbers work in Florida, we couldn't. The deck is stacked against us. So we're in Massachusetts, we're in Washington, D.C., we're in California, where the economics are good and where the state government is really behind clean energy. The biggest gift that Orlando has is OUC, or the home utility controlled by the citizens of Central Florida. It is your biggest gift. Everybody in this room, you've got to understand what you've got is a real gem. Orlando Utility Commission is not about the investors. It's about the citizens here in Central Florida. And there are ways to make money and move forward. So my hat is off to you and the rest of the OUC group. You guys have the power to really set up an example to all of Florida, but also to the world. So thank you.
So we have time for one more question. I'll just throw it out to all of you. So, what opportunity, what would be the first tangible step that the city of Orlando could take in the next 18 months?
I think the story that we've heard today about the activities that are going on in Orlando, most of us here are just like preaching to the choir, so we get a lot of that. I think ways to share this story with other municipalities throughout the state, working together in ways, lessons learned and so forth. I think the excitement that you mentioned that you see in your students and your own children, it really is an exciting time. The people that are a lot younger than me, and there's a lot of them now, really are embracing this thing. I mean, this is our moonshot, if you will. Okay, and yes, we've got a sunshot program with DOE, but we've got an Energy Grand Challenge, which comes to vehicles. We've got all these interesting challenges to go ahead, and we spend a lot of time pointing fingers. I think the younger generation is, I'm here to help, put me to work. Okay, and they're looking for that opportunity. So the excitement of the story that's going on in Orlando needs to be shared, and it's a story that I think can be very infectious.
Yeah, so my big suggestion would be to kind of continue doing, but even more aggressively, what's already happening, which is this working together, the collaboration, just making sure that OUC and the city and Orange County, the whole community is coming together to be a part of these conversations so that we're not making shifts in little silos, but to continue to just make sure that we're making the big changes, and then to get the message out there, like to come up with creative, funny, unique little videos and be able to send those out on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, like just get it out so that we can share those messages in a way that, again, is not like, oh God, recycling, oh, I can't take it anymore. You know what I mean? Just like in a way that's like, okay, this is what we're doing, and this is why it's make it entertaining in that way.
John, real quick, what I would suggest to Orlando Utility Commission is to incentivize electric vehicles with, say, a free charger for your home if you buy an electric vehicle. I mean, you got to look at this as like the natural gas industry incentivizes you getting hooked up to natural gas. They'll give you the stove, or in some cases, or the hot water heater that uses gas. We have to use the same power of OUC to incentivize electric vehicle charging stations at your home and at your office. And really, you almost want to hand them out like candy now to really seed the environment here to get things going. Because you'll get that long-term flow of cash coming back at OUC. So it really is a win-win.
So because the mayor's done so much and everyone's done so much, it's hard to say what we need them to do because they've been such great supporters. But I guess there's three quick things I would say. One is, you got to keep companies moving in the right direction, and they're big companies, and it's difficult. It's not important to their bottom line yet because consumers are not necessarily asking yet. And it's for us to, the mayor's has a lot of sway at airports where a lot of these people want to have good positions. There's a whole variety of ways that just the moral authority and the position of the city can continue to drive these large companies that work here to continue to commit to this. And that's really important too. The federal government has offered a grant pretty much designed for this program. The idea is how do you get more renters into cars, and it's $2 million. We'll be applying for that with the city, with the state, and just working on that and making sure that the political forces are aligned to get that money from the federal government. And most of that money is actually for advertising and different things. So that's really interesting and a different type of way of thinking about that. And then finally, the city's fleet itself needs to begin to shift over, to alternative vehicles. Certainly the bus fleet has turned to natural gas, which is great. Cars can continually turn over to both natural gas and electric, and look forward to the city setting an example for this program as well in that way. So just there's a lot to do, and look forward to continuing that partnership.
So we have time for 2 more questions. So, yes, back. Well, let's get the mic.
Good morning, and thank you for this presentation. And I applaud what Orlando is doing on a number of things, especially the transportation. I do want to take the opportunity to clarify a couple of things that John said. One is the IOU record. I'll speak facts as opposed to accusations. The facts are, our electric bill today is lower than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we were also using 40 million gallons of barrels of oil. Today, we use less than 1. Most of the energy today is coming from American sources, natural gas. And yes, we've been pushing hard to build a lot of solar in the state, and we'll eventually get there. We also own over $10 billion of wind and solar assets all over the country. Our electric fleet, all of our trucks and all of the fleet that our customers, that all of our employees use is either electric, hybrid, or biofuel. We've moved our whole fleet. So we are doing some really cool stuff in the state. We're going to get a lot more done. But by the same token, I want you to know 2 things. One is our costs today are lower. It's about 30% lower than the average utility cost in the state of Florida. And our reliability is higher than any utility. So part of the challenge for a utility is to always continue to maintain a balance of cost, reliability, and also moving forward. Now, I will tell you this, that the majority of new construction in the United States as far as power plants is all renewable energy. So that's where it's going to go. But at the same time, we have to maintain a balance of being able to provide our customers the best options possible. So thank you for letting me rebut.
Any questions? Yes, in the back row.
Just wanted to say all this can happen and should happen and will happen faster than most people think, and is already happening. I have 38-year-old PV panels on my roof. They put out electricity at about 2 cents a kilowatt hour, some of which I sell back to FPL, who then charges you more to sell it back to you so that they can pay their taxes. Not only are electric cars coming on extremely rapidly, but fully solar cars are indeed a possibility. We just have to build them utterly unlike the silly solar racers that are around now.
All right. Well, thank you very much, panelists. We now have a very